Tomorrow is the 15th of March 2026, and you are stepping directly, inevitably, and profoundly into a day of absolute, uncompromising cosmic surrender, massive psychological revelation, and unprecedented, breathtaking spiritual awakening. We are entering a highly sensitive, deeply complex, and completely overwhelming 24-hour period where the solid, predictable, and rigid structures of your everyday physical reality are completely, entirely, and beautifully dissolved by a massive, roaring tidal wave of ethereal, otherworldly energy. The celestial weather dominating the sky on this exact date is orchestrated by two monumental, deeply fated, and incredibly powerful planetary shifts occurring simultaneously, creating a dense, heavy cosmic landscape that demands your absolute, unwavering, and fierce attention. First, the blazing, vital, and life-giving sun is officially leaving the detached, highly intellectual and logical realm of the air signs and plunging directly, heavily into the deep, boundless, oceanic, and highly psychic territory of Pisces. This massive, undeniable solar shift fundamentally and permanently changes the entire energetic frequency of the Earth. It marks a profound, unavoidable period of collective ego death, where the arrogant, loud, demanding, and highly individualized voice of the human ego is completely submerged, violently humbled, and entirely silenced by the vast, quiet, and ancient wisdom of the collective human soul. Simultaneously, taking place deep within these very same heavy, mystical Piscean waters, we are witnessing a highly volatile, intensely karmic, deeply internal, and terrifyingly powerful collision. The fiery, aggressive, and relentless planet of physical action, Mars, is forming an exact, mathematically precise, and explosive conjunction with the deeply confused, backward-moving, and highly introspective planet of communication, Mercury Retrograde. This explosive, intense meeting of Mars and Mercury retrograde in the hypersensitive, spiritually porous, and psychic realm of Pisces is a profound, undeniable, and highly volatile recipe for sudden internal revelations, massive bursts of suppressed, boiling emotional energy, and a completely overwhelming, blinding flood of subconscious information. In traditional astrology, Mars wants to fight, to violently scream, to conquer, and to aggressively assert dominance upon the physical world. But tomorrow, submerged completely in the heavy waters of Pisces and inextricably tangled with a backward-moving, deeply confused Mercury, this aggressive physical energy absolutely cannot express itself outwardly. Instead, it turns violently, aggressively, and relentlessly inward. Your mind tomorrow will be incredibly, fiercely, and almost painfully active. You will be racing with sudden, brilliant flashes of piercing intuition, bombarded by long-forgotten, heavily buried memories, and perhaps overwhelmed by a deep, terrifying, and unresolved anger that you have been quietly, painfully swallowing for years. Tomorrow is absolutely not a day for chaotic, outward action. It is a divinely orchestrated, highly protected, and unconditionally mandated period for massive internal processing, deep, agonizing psychological excavation, and radical, unfiltered spiritual honesty. To truly grasp the staggering, life-altering, and profound gravity of March 15, you must understand that trying to force logical, rational, or aggressive solutions onto the external world tomorrow will only result in severe, devastating energetic depletion, painful, humiliating misunderstandings, and absolute, soul-crushing frustration. The universe is fiercely, aggressively, and beautifully demanding that you drop your heavy weapons, close your mouth, completely open your third eye, and navigate this incredibly dense, heavy, and blinding cosmic fog entirely by profound, unshakable, and divine intuition. When we transition into how you can specifically, actively, and consciously harness this massive, dissolving, and highly internal energy to attract immense wealth, physical money, and undeniable material abundance on March 15, the strategy must completely, radically, and permanently shift from the physical realm to the purely spiritual realm. Financial success tomorrow will absolutely, unequivocally not come from aggressive outward hustling, sending demanding, highly structured emails, negotiating fiercely in boardrooms, or attempting to verbally force a heavy, binding business deal to close. Because the planets of communication and action, Mercury and Mars, are violently colliding in a backward, retrograde motion, attempting to use aggressive, logical communication to secure wealth tomorrow will spectacularly, disastrously, and inevitably backfire. Your carefully chosen words will be instantly weaponized, wildly misinterpreted, and heavily distorted by the thick cosmic fog of Pisces. Instead, the energy of the radiant sun in Pisces, combined with this intense, internal mental fire, is profoundly magnetic, deeply, quietly receptive, and entirely rooted in the boundless, terrifying power of the subconscious mind. To magnetically, effortlessly attract massive, life-changing amounts of money tomorrow, you must deliberately, fiercely, align your internal physical vibration with the frequency of absolute surrender, deep, unshakable spiritual trust, and profound, uninterrupted creative flow. Wealth tomorrow is deeply, inextricably, and permanently connected to your unique ability to completely unplug from the chaotic, screaming matrix of the external world and tap directly, silently into the divine, unlimited, and overflowing source of universal abundance. Because your mind is heavily, violently active with sudden, brilliant subconscious downloads, tomorrow is an incredibly lucrative, practically magical, and highly fertile day to completely, ruthlessly rewrite your internal, inherited financial programming. The universe is handing you a massive, heavy, and glowing golden key to permanently unlock and destroy the deeply buried psychological blocks and ancestral traumas that have kept you in a painful, suffocating state of financial scarcity. You must deliberately take time to sit in absolute, uninterrupted, and sacred silence, consciously allowing the sudden, brilliant, and terrifying flashes of financial insight to simply arrive in your mind without forcefully chasing them. If your daily work involves profound, limitless creativity, deep, empathetic psychological healing, visionary, otherworldly art, or profound spiritual counseling, your unique, God-given talents will be in massive, unprecedented, and overwhelming demand tomorrow. The collective human consciousness is feeling highly sensitive, heavily burdened, deeply traumatized, and completely lost in the emotional, stormy waters of this exact astrological weather. Therefore, anything you produce, create, or bravely offer on March 15 that provides genuine, authentic spiritual guidance, profound emotional release, or deep, resonant artistic beauty will naturally, effortlessly, and magnetically draw a massive, fiercely loyal and desperate audience, and consequently a profound, overflowing and generational financial reward. Your financial mantra and absolute, non-negotiable operational directive for March 15 is this: I permanently, entirely release the heavy, exhausting, and terrifying need to aggressively fight for my basic survival. I deeply, profoundly, and unconditionally trust the quiet, brilliant, and undeniable wisdom of my ancient soul. I attract extreme, magnificent, and limitless wealth by fiercely aligning my internal actions with divine timing, by guarding my precious words fiercely and unapologetically, and by deliberately allowing universal abundance to flow safely to me effortlessly, like a rushing, magnificent, and unstoppable river. I am deeply, inherently, and divinely worthy of massive, unshakable financial peace. You must focus entirely, with absolute laser-like precision, on the deeply visceral, physical, and cellular feeling of absolute financial relief, completely, ruthlessly ignoring the frantic, fearful, and cold mathematical logic of scarcity, lack, and debt. Regarding your physical health, your daily, vital energy, and your delicate, microscopic cellular integrity on March 15, the ancient astrological emphasis must be heavily, uncompromisingly, and fiercely placed on the profound, undeniable, and deeply physical connection between your highly overstimulated nervous system and your fragile physical vessel. In the highly specific, deeply guarded system of medical astrology, The planet Mercury directly, physically governs the intricate, delicate, and easily frayed nervous system and the complex, rapid neural pathways of the brain. Simultaneously, the violent, aggressive planet Mars, absolute rules, physical heat, intense cellular inflammation, raw adrenaline, and the primal fight or flight response. When these two massive, contrasting forces painfully, intensely, and directly collide in the deeply sensitive, watery, heavily porous, and highly absorptive sign of Pisces, which specifically governs the lymphatic system, the delicate immune system, the mysterious spiritual pineal gland, and the physical feat, your entire physical body is violently thrust into a terrifying state of extreme, almost unbearable energetic and electrical overload. You are suddenly, involuntarily processing massive, heavy, and intensely dark emotional frequencies, not just from your own deeply buried subconscious, but actively absorbing the collective, unspoken pain, grief, and heavy anxiety of the entire, suffering world around you. You may wake up on March 15 feeling an overwhelming, inexplicable, and deeply primal physical exhaustion, completely accompanied by a sudden, sharp, and highly uncomfortable, restless, buzzing energy violently vibrating just beneath your skin. Your mind is racing at a terrifying, unmanageable speed, but your heavy physical body is loudly, aggressively demanding absolute, unapologetic, and immediate rest. You must absolutely, unconditionally honor these complex, wildly contradictory physical mandates without a single, fleeting, or toxic ounce of guilt, shame, or hesitation. The most critical, actionable, and literally life-saving step you can take for your physical health tomorrow is to aggressively, fiercely, and stubbornly prioritize the deep, profound, and immediate cooling and calming of your fragile, overworked nervous system. You absolutely, unconditionally must not force your beautiful, sensitive, and overloaded body to endure punishing, highly stressful, deeply toxic, or hypercritical physical environments tomorrow. You must strictly, completely avoid massive, heavy, high-intensity workouts, heavy weightlifting, or grueling physical marathons, as the trapped, internal, burning fire of Mars will only lead to sudden, devastating physical burnout, severe muscle tearing, or deep, unexpected, and painful joint inflammation. Instead, you must actively, consciously engage in deep, rhythmic, highly controlled, and heavily meditative breathing exercises. You must drink massive, unprecedented, and practically constant amounts of pure, clean, heavily filtered water to actively help your internal, sluggish lymphatic system physically flush out the heavy emotional toxins, the stagnant psychic debris, and the raw, unexpressed, burning anger that are violently circulating through your deep tissues and vital organs. In the evening, before you attempt to sleep, it is absolutely, non-negotiably essential that you physically perform the sacred, deeply grounding, and ancient ritual of soaking your bare physical feet in a heavy basin of warm, comforting water heavily infused with rich, purifying Epsom salts and deeply soothing, highly medicinal essential oils like pure lavender, frankincense, or blue chamomile. This specific, ancient, and highly physical action will violently, immediately, and safely pull the frantic, burning, and dangerously overactive mental energy directly down from your racing mind, effectively, beautifully clearing the heavy, painful, and blinding Mercury Retrograde brain fog out of your crown chakra. Your ultimate unshakable health affirmation for tomorrow is, I deeply, fiercely, and unconditionally love, honor, protect, and revere my physical vessel. I boldly, safely allow my racing, exhausted mind to completely, safely, and entirely rest. I consciously, deliberately, and permanently release all trapped, burning anger, all frantic, heavy anxiety, and all toxic, painful inflammation from my bones, my blood, and my cells. My physical body is a sacred, beautiful, impenetrable, and calm sanctuary, and I strictly nurture it today with extreme gentleness, massive, unwavering patience, and profound, overflowing, divine peace. To safely, brilliantly, and successfully navigate the massive, surging, highly volatile, and dangerously emotional cosmic waters of March 15, you must implement and rigidly, stubbornly, and ruthlessly follow a strict set of actionable, non-negotiable, and highly protective energetic guidelines. First and absolutely, undeniably foremost, you must fiercely, aggressively, and completely refuse to engage in any form of verbal combat, petty arguments, highly critical debates, or toxic emotional warfare tomorrow. The explosive, burning, and highly confusing conjunction of Mars and retrograde Mercury guarantees that your spoken words and the words of others are heavily loaded, dangerously weaponized, and highly prone to causing massive, irreversible, and deeply painful destruction to your life. If someone deeply misunderstands you, aggressively challenges your personal perspective, or deliberately attempts to provoke a sudden, angry, and unhealed reaction from you, you must take a profound, deep, centering breath, turn completely around, and walk away in absolute, unbroken, and terrifying silence. Do not, under any circumstances, send the long, angry, deeply accusatory, and heavily emotional text message. Do not violently, aggressively defend your fragile ego. Trying to fiercely, aggressively prove your logical point tomorrow is the exact energetic equivalent of fighting a massive, raging, and out-of-control house fire by aggressively, foolishly pouring heavy buckets of gasoline directly onto it. Silence is absolutely not a weakness tomorrow. It is your greatest, most terrifying, most impenetrable, and absolute source of ultimate divine power. Second, you must actively, fiercely, relentlessly, and unapologetically protect your personal, highly porous, and deeply vulnerable energy field from the massive, crushing waves of collective paranoia, deep, systemic confusion, and heavy, toxic, world-ending anxiety that are currently saturating the Earth's atmosphere. Because the blazing, massive sun is actively illuminating the boundless, unshielded, and highly psychic waters of Pisces, the usual protective, the logical barrier between your personal energy and the heavy energy of the outside world is virtually, completely non-existent. You will be highly, dangerously, and intensely susceptible to involuntarily, physically absorbing the chaotic, heavy, and deeply traumatic emotional pain of everyone you interact with, mistakenly registering their heavy panic as your own. You must draw a rigid, heavy, thick, and absolutely impenetrable boundary around your physical heart and your immediate physical space tomorrow. You must actively take 5 uninterrupted minutes to sit in absolute, complete, and sacred stillness, vividly, aggressively visualizing a thick, glowing, spinning, and impenetrable shield of divine white and gold light completely surrounding your entire physical form. Set a fierce, unyielding, and terrifying intention that you will only process, feel, and experience your own divine truth today, and that the heavy, chaotic, angry, and fearful illusions of the external world will violently, effortlessly, and permanently bounce off this brilliant, protective shield. While this massive, magnificent, and completely sweeping wave of ego dissolution, intense mental activity, and profound, terrifying spiritual awakening washes heavily and inevitably over the entire human collective, pulling every single living soul on Earth into a much deeper, highly expansive, and beautifully, painfully vulnerable state of subconscious revelation. The highly specific, mathematically precise astrological geometry of March 15 points directly, undeniably, and fatefully to 3 highly activated, deeply destined zodiac signs. These 3 specific signs are standing directly, inescapably, and violently at the roaring, magnificent, and deafening epicenter of this massive cosmic storm, and they will physically, mentally, and spiritually feel this deeply confusing, highly volatile energy as a monumental, life-altering, and permanent shift. First, and most obviously, we must address the absolute, undeniable, and magnificent center of this massive phenomenon, Pisces. If you hold your sun, your sensitive moon, or your guiding ascendant, your rising sign, in the sign of Pisces, Tomorrow is a monumental, highly destined, fiercely intense, and breathtakingly profound day for your entire, beautiful existence. You are the absolute, undisputed, and magnificent main character of this massive, sweeping cosmic event. The blazing, life-giving, and highly visible sun has officially entered your sign, theoretically bringing massive, radiant light, renewed, vibrant physical vitality, and a deep, beautiful, and undeniable rebirth of your core, fundamental identity. You are meant to be shining. However, simultaneously, the incredibly volatile, highly dangerous, deeply angry, and entirely confusing conjunction of Mars and Mercury retrograde is actively, aggressively, and loudly exploding directly in your very first house of self, physical appearance, and personal projection. You are currently experiencing a massive, undeniable, agonizing, and deeply confusing internal paradox. You feel a sudden, magnificent, and overwhelming surge of vital energy and a deep, burning desire to finally, boldly step into the light and claim your ultimate destiny, but your mind is simultaneously completely overwhelmed, deeply confused, heavily paralyzed, and fiercely, violently battling massive, crashing waves of internal, unexpressed anger, deep resentment, and old, heavy, painful memories from the distant past. The ultimate, non-negotiable, and life-saving advice for Pisces tomorrow is radical, fierce, and entirely unapologetic. You must absolutely, unconditionally, and permanently stop trying to verbally explain your massive, beautiful, and complex internal evolution to a cold, logical world that is completely, stubbornly committed to entirely misunderstanding you. Your deep intuition is piercingly sharp, terrifyingly accurate, and deeply, undeniably divine right now. You must unconditionally, blindly trust the sudden, overwhelming, and massive urges you feel tomorrow to drastically, violently change your life. But you must keep these massive plans absolutely, completely, and securely secret. Let the heavy, confusing, and painful internal fire completely burn away the old, dead, and highly pleasing versions of your fragile ego. Do not loudly speak your massive plans. Quietly, aggressively, beautifully, and silently become them. The universe has proudly, definitively handed you the heavy golden pen, and you are being asked to write a magnificent, wildly successful, and deeply spiritual new chapter of your ultimate destiny entirely in the absolute safety and profound silence of the shadows. The second sign, deeply, inescapably, fiercely, and heavily affected by tomorrow's massive, confusing, and highly emotional energy, is Virgo. Virgo sits exactly, mathematically, and perfectly opposite to Pisces on the karmic, evolutionary, and highly fateful wheel of the zodiac. Because of this perfect, undeniable, and highly challenging opposition, all of the massive, explosive, deeply spiritual, wildly emotional, and highly confusing planetary energy currently gathering, surging, and violently colliding in Pisces is beaming directly, fiercely, relentlessly, and unavoidably into your seventh house. This is the highly sensitive, incredibly vulnerable, and monumentally important sector of your astrological chart that directly governs your most serious, binding partnerships, your marriage, your long-term heavy romantic commitments, your binding legal business contracts, and the fundamental open enemies you face in the public eye. Furthermore, Mercury is your absolute ruling planet, the core foundation of your entire operating system, and its backward, deeply confused, and highly aggressive collision with the fiery planet Mars means your typically razor-sharp, flawless, highly organized, and deeply analytical mind is completely, entirely, and frustratingly offline. For Virgo, a highly practical earth sign that is fundamentally, stubbornly, and entirely built upon the deep, desperate desire for absolute emotional order, extreme practical control, unshakable, flawless perfectionism, and cold, hard, unfeeling logic, the massive, watery, angry, deeply irrational, and incredibly chaotic emotional energy of tomorrow will feel highly disruptive, incredibly disorienting, absolutely terrifying and deeply unsafe. Mars and Mercury are violently triggering highly fated, massive, and undeniable karmic conflicts and deep misunderstandings within your closest, most intimate human relationships. You may suddenly, unexpectedly face a massive, aggressive, highly irrational, and deeply confusing argument with a romantic partner, or a deeply buried, fiercely unresolved, and highly toxic emotional grievance from the distant past may violently, suddenly, and unapologetically explode to the immediate surface. The ultimate, most challenging, incredibly critical, and entirely non-negotiable lesson for Virgo tomorrow is mastering the profound, terrifying, and completely ego-crushing art of absolute, unconditional surrender. You absolutely, fundamentally, cannot rigidly control, fiercely micromanage, carefully organize, or critically logic your way out of the massive, beautiful, terrifying, and chaotic wave of raw human emotion that is crashing heavily and inevitably into your relationships right now. You must consciously, deliberately, bravely, and entirely drop your heavy, ironclad, and exhausting armor of constant criticism. You must absolutely, unconditionally refuse to engage in petty, aggressive, hypercritical, or destructive verbal warfare. True, massive abundance, unshakable, profound peace, and deep, permanent relationship healing for Virgo tomorrow will only, exclusively, and beautifully come from completely allowing the confusing, messy, and highly emotional storm to completely pass, deeply forgiving the incredibly flawed humanity in others, and relying entirely, fully, and unconditionally on deep, unspoken, and boundless empathy rather than sharp, destructive, and ultimately useless logical analysis. The third sign that will feel a massive, tectonic, fiercely internal, highly frustrating, and utterly profound energetic shift tomorrow is Aries. Aries is fiercely, exclusively, and entirely ruled by the aggressive, fiery, unstoppable, and deeply action-oriented planet Mars. Tomorrow, your ultimate ruling planet is forming a massive, highly volatile, incredibly frustrating, and deeply confusing collision with retrograde Mercury, and this entire, explosive, burning meeting is occurring completely, entirely, and heavily submerged in the boundless, watery, deeply hidden, and highly secretive realm of your 12th house. The 12th house is the final sector of the zodiac. It is the deep, terrifying subconscious mind, the realm of hidden unseen enemies, profound spiritual isolation, heavily guarded secret sorrows, self-sabotage, and massive, unavoidable karmic closure. For Aries, a highly physical, aggressively forward-moving, profoundly impatient, and deeply competitive fire sign, tomorrow will feel incredibly, deeply, painfully, and physically exhausting. The blazing, aggressive, and highly visible fire that usually constantly fuels your raw, unstoppable ambition and your desire to physically conquer the world is completely, entirely, and violently drowned out by the heavy, thick, and highly spiritual ocean of Pisces. You are feeling a destined, almost agonizing, deeply confusing, and highly frustrating push to fight, to scream, to assert your dominance, and to aggressively move your life forward, but you are completely, totally, and undeniably paralyzed, bound, and heavily restricted by the dense, blinding, and inescapable fog of the 12th house. The universe is actively, forcefully, aggressively, and beautifully forcing you into a massive, unavoidable period of profound, undeniable, and deeply isolating spiritual retreat. The heavy, grey, deeply confusing and painful fog of your unhealed past is actively, aggressively rising to the surface of your mind. The essential, non-negotiable, and absolutely critical advice for Aries tomorrow is to unapologetically, aggressively, deliberately, and fiercely pursue absolute, complete physical and emotional isolation. Do not, under any circumstances, force outward, physical action. Do not attempt to fiercely conquer your massive, worldly goals tomorrow, because your vital, physical energy is completely, entirely, and divinely being redirected deeply inward to fight massive, unseen, and highly terrifying spiritual battles within your own psyche. Use this powerful, highly active, deeply frustrating, and profoundly deep energy to become a visionary, deeply healed, and highly introspective spiritual warrior. Retreat immediately to the absolute, impenetrable safety of your physical home. Aggressively, fiercely seek out absolute quiet, and deliberately, bravely allow yourself to completely, heavily, and finally process the massive, unexpressed, burning anger, the deep, heavy resentment, and the heavily buried grief that you have been stubbornly, foolishly ignoring and running away from for years. The universe is aggressively, fiercely, and lovingly conspiring to completely, permanently clear your heavy subconscious mind tomorrow. Surrender completely to the heavy, beautiful, and deeply necessary fatigue. Drop your heavy sword, and let the profound, undeniable, and life-altering spiritual healing finally, completely, and permanently begin.